up on Huff Script at this time, and was working for another lumber company up there for $27 a week. That's what Daddy's earnings was. He'd work all week, and then on Saturday at noon he'd catch a train from Logan down to Hubble, where we lived, on Grandpa's place. That's where Walton Groethel was born. There on Grandpa's place beside of it. We lived side by side, George and Vicky, and our house was on Grandpa's farm. And he'd come down there, and he had $27 that he had earned that week. Well, he'd always have to pay a round-trip ticket, which was about $1, from Logan to Hubble and back. And on Sunday night, he'd catch a train back. Work all week and come back. It was just a routine thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when he'd get ready to go back on Sunday evening on the train, he'd give Mommy $7 or $8 to buy food and clothes and whatever us kids needed. And Mommy'd always save a little bit. Back then, things were cheap. Uncle Barney and Aunt Emmy had a store. They had shoes. So Mommy would save enough in 2 weeks, what Daddy would give her for us to go on. Mommy would save enough in 2 weeks to buy one of us a pair of shoes for school. Cost $1.98 pair of shoes. And that way we had new shoes for school every year. And one time, well then, we was a little bit close on money. And we was on a rural mail route. The mailman come down the road, and I seen him stick something in our mailbox, which we didn't get much mail back then. So when he left, I rushed out there to get it, and I come back in the house, and I said, Mommy, look at this pretty rocking chair on this. It was just a little flyer that the furniture company had sent out, you know. And she looked at it, and she said, oh, I'd love to have a chair like that. Well, we got to talking about it. And that night, after supper, we all gained in Mommy's bedroom. That's where our living room was, in Mommy's bedroom. And we was talking, and Mamie, my oldest sister, picked up that paper and went over and sat down on Mommy's knee and said, Mommy, I wish you had this chair. She said, child, we don't have enough money to have that chair. It's $12. It costs $12. And she said, Mommy, how much money you got? Well, she had a bag of money she kept in her drawer. She got it out and she had $8. Well, we got to thinking that if we would scamp and do a lot of cooking of what we could gather in to eat, we wouldn't have to spend much money Daddy was going to give us next week. We'd have enough to buy her a chair. So, next morning, all of us kids got up, we was out in the yard playing, and there's a family named Midkiff lived on one side of us. And they had a garden. And Miss Midkiff come over and said, Mr. Amy, said, I saw your boys digging your daddy's potatoes last week. I wonder if I could hire them to dig my potatoes, because Jesse, that was her husband, he works on the state road and he don't get in time to dig them. And Mommy said, yes, they can dig your potatoes for you. And she called me and Lucian in, told us we was going to dig her potatoes for her. We went over there and she had 4 rows of potatoes about as long as from here across the sidewalk there, across her garden. And we went to digging on them, and she brought 4 bushel baskets out there. And when we got through, we had 4 bushel baskets full of potatoes. Boy, that was a lot of potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, now, I'm going to give 2 of them away if you don't want them. If you want them, why then you can have them for digging. All I need is 2 bushel. Will do me through the winter. Just carry them down there in our cellar. She had a cellar. So we carried 2 bushel baskets full of them down there. she said, now, do you want to give your mommy these other 2 bushel? And we run to the house fast as we could, asked Mommy if we could take 2 bushel of potatoes for digging her potatoes. Mama said, yeah, we can do that. So we brought them 2 bushel baskets full of potatoes over there, and we found out right quick that we could eat potatoes instead of buying groceries with Daddy's money. And the next morning, Lawrence McClellan lived on the other side, and he worked for the United Fuel Gas Company, and wasn't at home, and his wife was pregnant. She was great big with a child. And she come over and said, Miss Ramey, does your boys work out for people? She said, well, yes, if they need them, well, then they'll go help them. She said, well, I can't pick beans, and I got a bean patch over there I'd like to have picked. How much would I have to pay them to get them to pick beans? It'd take them a day. Mommy said, well, whatever you want to give them. So she brought out a bunch of baskets and boxes, and me and Lucian started picking them beans. We got about halfway through the garden, and we had these big brown grocery bags, you know, that we used to have, paper grocery bags.
Right.
We had 4 of them full, and then we had a box full. And she picked up one of them brown bags, and she said, this is all I want. I don't want none of the rest of them. You pick them or just leave them hang there. I said, I don't want them. Take them to your mom once you got picked there. Well, we tore out that bean patch over at the house and said, Mommy, could we use some green beans? She said, yeah. So we brought them beans to the house, and she sent us back to pick the rest of them if she wasn't going to use them. So we picked all them beans, and that night she said, now girls, get in bed early, you got to get up in the morning. We're going to string beans and can them. So we had enough beans and potatoes to last us a month. And we saved some money, and then we got to wondering how we was going to get that chair. We had the money to get it with. Well, Uncle Barney had that big old long Durant or whatever it was, and he come driving down the road, didn't have no top on. He come driving down the road, and he stopped at our house. He come in, he said, Mommy's name was Rosie. He said, Rosie, did you get that flyer in the mail where that chair was for sale? She said, yes. He said, are you going to buy you one? She said, Barney, I don't know if I have the money or not. He said, I'll pay for it, and you can pay me a little bit at a time. Well, Mommy gave him the coupon he had to have to get it with. He said, I'm on my way over to Hamlin now to get one for my wife. That was Mommy's sister. And he took that coupon and went to Hamlin. When he come back, he said, well, they come in, but they didn't get them unpacked. They're over there in the warehouse. They'll come up to Midkiff on a local train tomorrow, and I'll go over there and get them. So the next day, that train went up past home from Hubble up to Midkiff, and Uncle Barney come over and he said, Leon, go with me and help me get them chairs in the car. So I went with him. We went over there, and Uncle Barney, he took a paper all off and everything, checked them, see the rockers were broken or the arms or anything, you know. And we got them in that chair. One of them fit in the back seat, and the other one up on top of it. And I had to sit in the passenger seat up front and hold that one on top, keep it from blowing off. We come down the road with Mommy's chair. We got home with that. I never seen anybody so happy in my life as my mama was with that chair. And of a night, Mommy was a good singer. Of a night, she'd sit in that chair in her bedroom, and Mamie'd be on one side, Maggie on the other, and they'd sing. And when we moved from there over here, we brought that rocking chair with us. And when we went into the lumber camp up here, that was all the good furniture we had. And but we lived on green beans and potatoes for 2 weeks so we'd have enough money to buy that chair. But when Mama died, later Daddy got married, you know, to Florence, and he wanted to take the chair over on, the chair was in the home place up here where Glenn lives. He wanted to take it over to Florence's where he'd have a good chair to sit in. And that was the last time I ever saw the chair.
Wow, what a shame.
It was a reed chair just like that when I got sitting there in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Had reed arms turned over on it,
Right.
you know, and padded. Good, comfortable chair. Honest
Shame you couldn't have got that in it.
It might. There is a very thin chance that her Harold, that was Mama Florence's boy. When Dad and Florence died, he stored their furniture in his outbuilding. There's a very slight chance that that chair might be in that furniture, but I've never said anything to Harold about it. But,
We'd love to have it, wouldn't you?
oh, I'd love to have that chair.
Yeah.
I know